Hey, good morning. I'm Patricia Murphy. It's Wednesday. This is Seattle Now. Tacoma's Northwest ICE Processing Center is one of the largest in the country, but while ICE uses the center for processing and detention, they don't actually own it. That may change as the agency looks to expand its footprint in the Seattle area. KUOW's Gustavo Sagrero will tell us more in a minute, but first, let's get you caught up. Paramount Skydance is seeking to charge Washington and other states for delaying its merger with Warner Brothers. Washington is among a coalition of 12 states that sued in July to stop the conglomerates from merging. A federal judge temporarily halted the merger. Now, Paramount has asked a judge to force the states to set aside nearly $2 billion, which would go to the company if it prevails in court. A U.S. district judge will be asked to rule on the request today. You can already get tires, hearing aids, and giant bags of dumplings at Costco. Now, the Issaquah-based warehouse chain wants to begin offering Medicare Advantage plans. The Seattle Times reports Costco is partnering with a nonprofit insurance company called SCAN. According to the paper, Costco will initially sell plans in 2 states, but they haven't announced if Washington will be one of them or when the plans will roll out. Say, friends, the Mariners have announced a celebration weekend for broadcaster Rick Riz, who's retiring at the end of the season. 3 days of events and giveaways are planned for September 25th through the 27th during the Mariners' final series of the season. Riz has spent 41 years doing play-by-play for the M's, making him the longest tenured broadcaster in team history. The team is also planning to induct Riz into the team's Hall of Fame with a ceremony planned for next season. Check back for more headlines on tonight's episode of Seattle Now. U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement wants to buy detention centers across the country in Denver, Miami, Philadelphia, and here in the Seattle area. This comes during a reported surge in immigration arrests in Seattle this summer. KUOW Group, the owner of Tacoma's Northwest ICE Processing Center, recently told their investors they're entering talks to sell some of their facilities to ICE. Detainees describe poor conditions in the processing center. A reported hunger strike due to allegations of inedible food and medical neglect officially ended this week after a visit from Washington Representative Emily Randall this weekend.
It's clear that folks inside are not being treated the way that they deserve, and they're crying out for help. And it's our job to help elevate those stories.
A shift to federal ownership may impact local attempts at oversight from advocates and legislators. Gustavo Sagrero is here to talk about it. He's KUOW's race, identity, and immigration reporter. Gustavo, good to see you. Thanks for taking the time.
Of course.
So the Tacoma Immigration Facility has been around for a couple of decades now. Let's give listeners some perspective. What's it for?
So the facility's been there to detain and process immigrants the federal government thinks it can deport. That could include all types of immigrants, from like green card holders to people who've entered the country without inspection to immigrants who might have a chance to get legal status but haven't really started the process yet. There's a civil federal courthouse in there where immigrants can attend court and they can contest their potential deportation or adjust their immigration status. That's like the processing part of the facility. People can also get bond out of the facility at that court, but the Tacoma immigration judges are known for setting a bond that's pretty high. This facility is a central tool in mass deportations. Under the Trump administration, immigrants who stay in the facility often have a harder chance at finding a way to get legal help or even ways to stay in the U.S.
And as we mentioned, there have been a lot of complaints about the state of the facility in Tacoma. What can you say about the conditions there right now?
So we talked about like the processing part, right? These complaints that have been coming up arise in the detention part of the facility. Like we mentioned, the series of hunger strikes just wrapped up. The strikers said that they need to eat to help their bodies combat the side effects of some of the medication they've been taking while in lockup. They've been rallying against the very same poor food conditions they were receiving. Think like small portions, allegedly poorly cooked. You know, we've heard reports of people saying like the chicken is undercooked. Sometimes they'll throw it in a microwave to heat it back up. It's kind of inedible. Detainees say they also came to some agreements with representatives of KUOW Group to make things better. But this has been a common issue that comes up time and time again, year after year at the facility.
You know, it's notoriously difficult to get eyes on the inside of this facility. How do you know?
So I talk with current and former detainees and their loved ones on a frequent basis. There's also groups of advocates for the people on the inside who will notify press and get in touch with us and help us connect with them. But also, much of these complaints have been filed directly to the Department of Homeland Security itself. And the University of Washington has been getting these complaints and publishing their analysis through their Center for Human Rights. But researchers say, GEO Group has never been sanctioned for much of anything. They say the internal accountability process amounts to theater, essentially. They've also been raising the alarm about how GEO Group is helping the U.S. government overstep constitutional and human rights laws by detaining people who they shouldn't have and moving people in and out of the privately owned facility defying court orders. And in some cases, deporting people to places where former detainees say they've been tortured. More recently, complaints have also been shared with Washington State's Department of Health, who's been battling it out with GEO Group in court to inspect these facilities because of those complaints. GEO Group keeps pushing them back from entering in the facility, and they're appealing those legal wins that the Department of Health has had. The legal fight could go all the way up to the Supreme Court, potentially.
And part of the issue here is that this is privately owned. The Department of Prisons has a more open policy, but the privately owned status of this facility is part of the reason that you can't get as much information.
Yeah.
Why is GEO Group interested in selling these facilities? Why specifically to ICE?
Well, so they've been running these facilities for decades now. CEO and founder of GEO Group, George Zolli, said in a shareholder call that, the potential sale of these multiple ICE facilities could be a lot of money for them. So just to compare, ICE bought a facility similar to the Tacoma ICE Center in California, owned by CoreCivic, now GEO Group, for nearly $500 million earlier this month. DHS has told Time magazine they've bought facilities because politicians and their legislation are making privately owned immigration detention facilities financially infeasible. And the kind of legislation we're talking about is what they would call sanctuary or pro-immigrant in different ways.
Okay. The Tacoma facility hasn't yet changed hands. Is this something that ICE is potentially interested in?
Just about a month ago, the federal government put out a request for information. They were looking for 4 turnkey facilities across the country, including one within 30 miles away from ICE's Seattle office. They also wanted a place that was ready to be operational or turnkey and had at least 1,500 beds. All of that lines up pretty succinctly with the Tacoma lockup.
Okay. Are there other possible places that ICE could look at in the Seattle area rather than Tacoma?
That's definitely a good question. I went back to the documents, and the language is pretty explicit. ICE says that, the facility needs to be exclusively for immigrant detention. That rules out detention facilities like a tribal prison, or if there was another prison nearby, or even the federal prison in SeaTac. That kind of rules all those places out.
We've heard a lot about the problems going on inside these facilities. Would ICE taking things over change the conditions potentially?
It would probably be a step in shoring up what's already happening in the facility today. GEO Group executives said that if they would sell any of their facilities to ICE, they would still look to keep running the day-to-day operations inside the facility. Documents detailing ICE's purchase of a Seattle area facility say that federal supremacy rules would shield them from local or state government oversight.
Okay, so even more difficult to get eyes in the facility. How have Tacoma lawmakers been responding to concerns about the detention center?
Well, so the facility was first spun as a job generator for Tacoma. But current council members say that hasn't really played out. For as long as the facility has been there, elected Tacoma city council members have been trying to push back on it. It's almost like a legal lab. This is Tacoma city council member Sandesh Saldagye.
We've had calls with other cities through political groups, and they've all been impressed with where we are in terms of what we've been able to do. But at the same time, it's simply not enough because our authority on a local basis is still limited.
In past years, the city of Tacoma did rezone the land the facility is on to prohibit facilities like a detention center. That meant that the facility can still run, but it can't be expanded on. That might be challenged if it comes into federal ownership.
As we've been talking about, if the center is sold and access is restricted, what other methods of local oversight exist here?
So the Washington State Department of Health, who's been trying to inspect the facility, says even if GEO Group were to sell the immigrant lockup, they'll still be potentially operating the facility for the feds, which the Department of Health says they'll argue that state law allows for the inspection on private operations inside a federally owned detention facility. King County also recently hired a flight monitoring and outreach coordinator to watch ICE flights in and out of Boeing Field.
All right, Gustavo, what are you going to be looking at as this story moves ahead?
Sure. Despite the rollback on the Fed's own internal self-accountability systems on immigration affairs, they still have some of those measures in place, right? So occasionally they'll be publishing their findings when it comes to their internal audits. I'll definitely be keeping my eyes peeled for those when it comes to the Tacoma lockup. George Zoley, again, KUOW Group founder and CEO, also mentioned something interesting in his recent earnings call with investors. He told them what the future of immigrant detention could look like.
So they want to be in fewer, larger facilities with a normal detention capacity of about 100,000, not including maybe a lot of these little jails, which are just feeder locations to the main facilities that they want to have.
Right now, the landscape is scattered when it comes to immigrant detention. But what I'll be keeping my eyes out for is if this facility is sold to ICE, what will ICE do, or even other federal immigration enforcement agencies do, with its current smaller processing facilities in Washington state? I'll also be keeping my ears open in late September. That's the soonest we could hear about the outcome of the money talks that KUOW Group and ICE are entering into now to sell a number of their facilities nationwide, and see if Tacoma might end up being one of them.
Yes, and of course, you're always talking to families.
Yeah, always.
Gustavo Sagrero reports on race, identity, and immigration for KUOW. Really appreciate it. Thanks for your reporting.
Of course.
Thanks for listening to Seattle Now. If you can, take a minute to rate and review the show in your podcast app. Before we go, our question of the week. Wild Waves is closing after 50 years. What's your favorite memory of going there? Share your answer in the KUOW app. Just open the menu and select Talk to Us. More at KUOW.org/question. Today's episode was produced by Vaughn Jones. It was edited by Caroline Chamberlain Gomez. Our production team also includes Andy Hurst, Brooklyn Jamerson Flowers, and Paige Browning. Greg Kramer does our theme music. Seattle Now and KUOW Public Radio are members of the NPR network. I'm Patricia Murphy. Talk to you tonight for Evening Headlines.